All right. Hello, our little lifers. I'm Mark.
And I'm Donna.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Did you miss us? Because we weren't here last week. Hopefully somebody noticed.
What happened?
We were busy.
Yeah.
And Mark had a lot going on with his family.
Yeah.
A lot. Oh, Dad just got out of the hospital. Wasn't feeling good. Had a fever.
Still not feeling good.
No, just stuff. So we decided we're just going to chill this week, and I just kind of did stuff on my channel. Yeah. But I have been wanting to do this video for a while. I don't know why, because it's interesting to me. Hopefully it'll be interesting to you. But we're going to give y'all a little history of the house and how we ended up coming to live here. And Mark, his parents live in front of us. And the very end of our driveway is a shared drive. And then his parents' house goes off. And then it comes on down the driveway to our house. And he lived here from the time he was 8.
Yeah, they built that house when I was in the start of the 3rd grade.
Yeah, so he was a little brat. He was the
baby.
Now
I'm a big brat.
He's a big brat now. And he lived out there until you were, when did you move out into the condo? Early 20s.
Yeah,
early
21,
20s.
22.
So this house used to belong to it was built by the Roberts family, and they were the earliest and only thing that we've ever been able to find about when this house was built was one little piece of paper in the wall.
Corner of a newspaper.
Yeah.
We've done like 6 renovations here.
And he wasn't home, and I was here, and like the workers at that point, like we had kept using the same contractors every time we did a reno. And they knew me. And so they were like, do you want to keep this stuff in the wall? And I'm like, yes. So they would throw everything out in a pile, and I would go through everything like a good hoarder.
Well, and you also, it's pretty cool. And, I guess we'll post some pictures of stuff as we mention this. You have built a lot of furniture out from the wood that came from this house.
So I love that sort of thing. And I happened to just be standing in the living room as they were tearing the wall out. And I saw, because it used to be insulated with newspaper.
Yeah.
And I saw just it is so delicate, this little piece of paper. And we laminated it, and it kind of got messed up a little bit in the lamination. But it's this little tiny corner of a piece of paper, and it has the date of 1901. So that's the only thing we've been able to find to sort of at least hopefully give us the date of when this house was built.
This was the original house of this area. That's why if you ever see, the old 6-foot chain link fence that goes around the property, and we have a privacy fence that we built in front of that. But that fence looks so old because it is old, because they had the Randalls sold the property off back in the late 60s, early 70s to the neighborhood that is now developed around us. So there's probably about 7, 8 houses. Their backyard is our fence.
Yeah, but it's up to us.
Yeah.
Side and back. And he just said Randalls, and in case you caught the name that I mentioned, the Roberts family, Mr. and Mrs. Roberts built this house and lived here until they passed away. And then they willed it to their daughter, and she married a Randall. So if you happen to notice, we said 2 different last names. But Mr. Randall passed away when Mark was a child. Mrs. Randall lived here. And at some point, well, I guess when Mark was probably 7 at the time, they sold the front piece of property to his parents, and then they built their house. And they've known, they knew Mrs. Randall before her husband passed away, and after. She lived a long time after her husband
She was
died.
like a grandmother to me.
So Mark has pictures of them sitting here in this little old house.
Yeah, before we built out there,
Yeah, little old house, with her baby sitting them and everything. So she was the sweet lady. And when Mark and I got married, which has been 35 years, he lived in a little condo, and that belonged to your parents, didn't it?
Dad had bought a couple of condos.
And so he lived there, and that's where I moved in when we got married. My son and I moved in there and lived there for, I don't even remember how long, maybe a couple of years or something at the most. And then we bought our first house. And when we bought the house, that was kind of a big deal because we were young. We were in our early 20s, early to mid 20s, had our first home. It was brand new. And we lived there for 2 years. And I alluded to this in a video on my channel, The Coop Scoop. So if you're not you didn't come to this channel from my channel, I want to put the link to the video how Lola Mae got her name in the description of this, because it's titled How Lola Mae Got Her Name, which is one of my chickens, but it's not just about how this chicken got her name. It is a really remarkable story about something that happened since we lived here. But when we got married and lived in the condo, then, bought our house, we ended up with Mark's parents calling us one night and saying, come to dinner. We want to ask y'all something. And we came to dinner. And the funny thing is this house looked like a shack.
Oh, it was bad.
In bad shape. And so here we are, living about 45 minutes away from here in this, new house. And Mark's parents said, would you move into Mrs. Randall's house? Because she had passed away right about the time we got married. I don't remember if it was right before or right after, but she had passed away. And they were having to take care of this house because she willed it to them, because after her husband died, they were like family. I mean, like your parents took care of her when she was elderly. And so she left the house and the property to them. And it was really like a burden. And after a while, because they didn't want to rent it, with the driveway being shared partially.
Well, remember, the driveway used to be dirt driveway with rutted out holes.
Yeah, it was bad. And his sister lived here for a short time after she moved back from out of state. But it sat here empty. And they had to, I think, replace the roof at some point. They were having to mow like 3 acres of grass and all this stuff. And so they said, would you be interested in moving into that house?
And I was like, no.
Well, you didn't, I don't think you said anything. So I was immediately like thinking to myself, yes, because I always thought this property was beautiful. I had only been in the house maybe twice. And so I didn't really remember what the inside of it looked like, but I was immediately intrigued. And we, Mark was like, well, we'll think about it. And we got in the car and he was like, no, we're not moving behind my parents. And you have to remember, like, we were really young and living right next door to your mom was not.
Well, and of course, there was so much history. I mean, I had been here. She used to babysit me. I used to sit in which is now our kitchen. It's hard to explain how the house used to be.
It was very small. Very
set
small.
up. But
he was,
tons of memories. Like,
good
ones.
But at the same time, he was like, I don't want to. I guess to him, it felt a little bit like going backwards.
When we say old house, it was just that dilapidated panel.
Yeah.
No heating, no air, central heating, air.
No heating, no central air. They had a big heater in the living room that just sat in the room. And so
the big old lump in the floor. So
coming from, this brand new house we were living into this, but I said to Mark, I was like, let's just think about it. Let's think about it. And at the time, I don't even know if I said anything to Mark about this, but I used to have a recurring dream. It's going to make me sound like a crazy person probably, but I used to have a recurring dream that I moved into an old house and that it had things at the house that belonged to the people that used to live there. And it just felt like it was meant to be my home. And so in my dream, like I could wake up from this dream and be like, I dreamed that dream again. It was so weird. I could not have described the house to you though, because it was just vague. It was like this vague concept. And the things that were there at the house, all I knew was I didn't know what the things were when I would wake up, but I knew they were significant to the family. It was something that was really meaningful to the family that had lived there. So when we got offered this house, I was like, let's just go back and look. Let me just go in the house, because I hadn't been in it, like I said, but maybe twice.
And then it was, let's just live there for a year or two and then build on the property. And then that led to you going, got an idea about renovating.
Yeah. But before we ever moved in though, because this ties in with my dream, we came out, I think it might have been the next weekend or something, and we puttered around the property, and I was just like loving all the space and the trees. And there were 3 little sheds in the backyard in a row. And I think I opened one of them. There was nothing in it. It was in really bad shape, like falling apart. And then the other one just had like a bunch of nothing crap in it. And it was the same thing. And then there was one of them that had a bunch of stuff in it that had belonged to Mrs. Randall. So I don't remember if you went and walked up to your parents' house, because Mark wasn't sitting out there with me, but I sat down in that shed and started looking through things. There were quilts that were so dry rotted and you couldn't have used them. They were in terrible shape, they would just fall apart in your hand. But I was like, oh my gosh, these are somebody's handmade quilts, and I'm just like looking through all this stuff. There was a trunk and it had Bibles in it, old hymnals, some postcards that were sent back and forth from like cousins. There was one that was like, we're at the beach, we're having such a great time or something. And it was a picture on the front of people in like a bathing suit down like below their knees.
Mm-hmm.
It was just funny stuff. And so there were
back when modesty
was the thing. Ration stamps from the wartime. And so I'm just like out there, like going through the stuff, going like, this is so cool. And then I got down to the bottom of this trunk, and that's where I found that letter. And I don't still know we gave it to Mark's parents, and I don't know what they ever.
Don't you go into detail on the how Lola Mae got her name video, or
not about that? I just mentioned it.
Okay.
But I came across this letter. No, actually, I didn't mention this part at all. And when I opened, and it was from the Navy. And when I opened the letter, I immediately was like, this is the house. This is the house that I dream about, because this letter was the letter, and I'm sure they got a visit, but it was the letter letting them know, the Roberts family, that their son had died valiantly in Pearl Harbor, and what a brave young man he had been, and all this. And so I like run to Mark. I was like, oh my God, look how. And the word I was like, look how significant this is. And I was like, this is where I got to live. And so I didn't say this to Mark, but I was like, we really need to think about moving here. Just think of all the money we'll save, And he was going like, I don't want to live there. I don't want to do this. So I forced him, I guess. I don't know, because I won. But when we came out, it was so.
She wins often.
I know, but it was so funny because when we started working on the house, just to make it livable, really.
Oh.
We pulled up, there was carpet in the kitchen, which is a horrible idea. And we're pulling up the carpet, and there was like 5,000 staples in the floor. And I would be in there pulling staples up, and he's outside just walking around like, I don't want to do this. And so we ended up, but it was great because
what was really cool was
the house felt.
Oh yeah,
so
it's
homey.
never. It's not that it hasn't never felt right, but that old dilapidated screen porch, I actually still miss that porch.
I do too. It was on the front of the house.
The old single panel screen
you
door.
You would open the door and it would go and slam shut, But
so what has been the most significant thing to you by living here? Because keep in mind, I've been self-employed my whole life. I've had some odd and end jobs while I was in between ambitions. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yes, yes.
And have had tremendous success, have had what's the word?
Debilitating.
Debilitating.
I think that's what you're looking for.
Debilitating lows. Yeah. And when we had very prosperous seasons, we almost went with it. We almost went and bought the $1 million house with all the bells and whistles of that manicured lawn, all those things, and we just
never did it. Never pulled the trigger.
Never pulled the trigger because this.
And it almost seemed like every time we would talk about doing that, we would end up sort of going around to, why don't we just do a little reno? That would save us some money, and we would renovate.
It would scratch the itch.
Yeah, it would scratch the itch, and we would end up with a new bathroom or whatever. But I think for me, we moved a lot when I was a kid, and he didn't. I mean, like we moved sometimes twice in the same year. No, I'm not a military brat either. We just moved. But, and I had to change schools a lot, and that, knowing that, or just knowing, I mean, like literally, I know that sounds crazy from that dream, knowing that this is the house I was supposed to live in. And I'll be honest, like what Mark's mom and I didn't have a great relationship for a long time, and we do now, and we have for a good while, but we didn't in the beginning. And honestly, I can look back and go, I think that this is her baby boy, youngest, only boy, And she's always been mom, 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 like, you know, loves knowing where her little chicks are and everything. And he married me, who had already been married and had a child. And I think that that really bothered her. And so there was just this, you know, she held
It
me
was
at arm's
weird.
length for a long time. Even though I knew I was going to be living behind them, I didn't care because I thought this is going to be my home for a long time. And I think that was probably what was significant to me, is knowing like I'm settled. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere for a long time. I'm not going to have to haul my things out of the house and go somewhere different. But yeah, and I've loved it.
Yeah, I think what's been grounding about it is we both agree when you say it feels like home and it feels safe, it's hard to articulate how legit that is. It just feels right. And obviously, we don't have the beautiful yard and the landscaping, and we've never been yard people, especially with the chickens. You can forget about having a good yard. So the backyard looks like a disaster, just crap everywhere and dust bathing holes. It's rough. It's the country yard, you know, but what has been incredible is it's kept us grounded, because you never know what life's going to bring. And when you go through the
more lean times,
the lean times financially, it's been awesome to not have this massive mortgage payment that so many people face on a day in day out basis. So it kept us grounded. But I think, you know, we the unfortunate part now is, especially back in 2008, when the economy went south pretty quick and a lot of the houses tanked and a lot of our neighbors died, and some investors bought some of the properties. Keep in mind, that back up to our property, and renters and just people that didn't seem to have those Southern standards of friendliness or whatever consideration. And so that's why we put up the big privacy fence. And we've had some really challenging times with neighbors.
Yeah, we really have.
And that's what's made us consider and think about wanting to move, and still one day wanting to move, because when I say inconsiderate, it's mind-boggling how rude people have become. Maybe some of you guys are experiencing that yourself.
I do feel like if we decided to move today, you know, I would be okay with it now, but because I feel like we have gotten what I needed, I guess, from this place, that sense of home and stability. And but I do think, you know, it might be there, you know, who knows, we might end up doing another renovation and never leaving. Seems to be the way we go. But I wouldn't mind having more property. And I think because when we first moved in here, all of our neighbors were older than us, and they were wonderful.
Now we're them.
Now we are them. And they were wonderful. And, you know, I had like a sweet lady that lived behind us, and sometimes if she would come out in the yard, she was much older, and my dogs would run to the fence
and she
and
was
bark.
Probably only in her 60s back then.
I don't know. This hadn't been that long ago, because she has passed away. But I would run out there and be like, I'm sorry. You know, I don't want the dogs to bark at you. And she'd say, honey, that's okay. I love seeing your dogs. So we just had like some really sweet neighbors. And then, like you said, when that happened and it was like the housing market, everything was so cheap.
What made it worse for our county, because the county we're in a decent area of being near some really high-end homes. So it helps keep the value. But again, the ones that are around us did kind of some deals were available, put it that way. In the county, the school board lost its accreditation, which is mind numbing. So that was a double effect of that.
I've mentioned it on my channel, the Coop Scoop. I'll have do a video of the chickens, and I'll put music as the background, and I'd have people say, like, I want to hear your chickens. I don't want to hear music. And part of that reason is mainly because of our neighbors, because we'll have people that are the people that live right beside, they're the closest house to us, even though we have probably the biggest piece of property around here. The people that are closest to us, they play music literally almost every day outside. And I can't let that music, I'll get a copyright warning play in the background of my videos, so I'll have to do it. But we have, like, Mark has asked them nicely, so many times. It's almost like if somebody came to me as a neighbor and said, your dog was barking for 30 minutes straight. Did you not hear it? I would be on it from that day forward.
You shouldn't.
And
you shouldn't be inside your own home and can't watch your own TV because the music's so loud.
Yeah.
And that's a
regular thing.
That's a regular.
Yeah, that's a regular thing. So I know we're not going to use this whole video to complain about our neighbors, but that would be one of the reasons that we might.
Yeah, but what's really cool is just like under the kitchen is still the original floor, which is logs cut in half as the floor joist. Yeah. There's a section of wooden shingled roof. The original wooden shingled roof is still up under the roof line. We've got some of the construction, the old carpenter nails that they had. We've got the wooden pegs that came out of what put them to the joist together.
I think, and I have nothing to prove this. Well, I say nothing, but that the house is older, that it was built before 1901. The main part of it, and the reason is because of the building materials. They were handmade nails. Wooden, and the cornerstones of the house,
huge boulders,
were literally rocks. We still have them; they're out in the woods somewhere. Just literally rocks. So I think that type of construction ended in the Civil War area, and we are in a very historical Civil War area. But I think that time frame to do those building materials ended in the 1800s before this. But needless to say, the house is at least 120 something years old. At the very least, but it definitely has a lot of history. And I love that there was like basically one family that owned it, the Roberts.
The energy of this house is so awesome.
I think I really, really recognized that when we hadn't been here very long. And when I say it looked like a shack, and we might have some pictures of it, but very few. It was in bad shape. It looked like a shack. It looked like somebody, I don't even know what to say about it, but I loved it. I mean, coming from a brand new house to here, I was like, I don't care. I just love this house. It's where I'm supposed to live. My aunt came to visit, Aunt Carolyn, and we hadn't been here very long. So we had done nothing to the house in the form of making it look better. And there was still no central heat and air. We had window units in the windows, and the heater, there was a heater in the living room and a heater in the bathroom, and that was it. The bedrooms were cold at night.
No insulation.
No insulation. And so she came here and walked in, and we were, I was just like greeting her. She was my favorite aunt. She has since passed away. And I was just like, hugging her and telling her, and she just went, I love this house. And her house was perfect. Like, it was one of those, every time I would go to her house, I would be like, oh my gosh, her house is beautifully decorated. And, hundreds of thousands of dollars more than this house was. And so she was like, I love your house. Like, this house has the best feeling of any house I've ever been in. And I was like, oh, it's not just me that thinks that. But I think because the family that built it, then, their daughter, and her name was Lola Mae, which is the video that I did about my chicken, because she was such a special lady that I named this chicken. I've been wanting to get forever after her. She might not appreciate it. I don't know. But Lola Mae was probably born in the house, because I think that most people, I don't think back then you went to the hospital, but she was probably born here and then, lived out her entire life here.
What's so cool about the property is, like, there's 13 pecan trees. Mm-hmm. There used to be a black oak tree. I mean, a black walnut tree.
Well, now there's a baby out there.
There used to be a big, huge pomegranate tree, which we just planted another one. But just
it's such an established
property.
And you don't find that in a new neighborhood. All these big, beautiful trees.
They cut them down.
If we moved, we're moving to the country, and because I want to replicate this, I would never move into a new neighborhood again.
Yeah.
I just need some land around me.
What's your closing thoughts?
I think a lot of times we just need things in our life that are going to keep us grounded and keep us humble. And there were a lot of times that we could have not been humble, and we could have moved. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Listen, if you can do it, go for it. But I feel like that has helped us weather, just staying here has helped us stay closer to each other, because it's kept a lot of the stresses down from overspending. I know in America in general, we're just such a materialistic country. And I think sometimes when we were in our high times of, your business doing well, Mark did have a few, like he bought several cars that he, were his favorite cars that he really liked and got to enjoy that. But, and then spoiled me and let me do things that I wanted to do, like have a million chickens and the things that make me happy. But we have stayed here, and it's kept us closer to the families. And we're now here, and it's not been easy, but we're now here close to his parents in their elderly years to help them. And, they definitely need a lot of help right now. And to be able to be there, and that's humbling in and of itself.
Yeah, I think I'm always the deep thinker. I think the thing I would like to close out with is everybody's going through something, or you're going to go through something. Maybe you're going through some challenging times yourself right now. But talking about this house and thinking about how many lives were lived under the roof of this house, the stories that could be told from the trees around the property, the things that happen on the land. The land used to produce their living. Everything old was once new. And going through this season with this past Thanksgiving and Christmas, and realizing it's never going to be again with my mom and dad. Mom was not able to come. We're stunned she's even still alive. And then dad having to go and have emergency surgery and part of his intestines removed. And even before that, when he came out for Thanksgiving, he was just a shell of himself because he can't hear well. And they've had a tough year last year after 73 years?
73, I think,
of
marriage. That is a long time.
Yeah, it is. So I think my message would be just to, and I'm doing this, myself, is just trying to live in the present moment of life and try to, regardless of what's going on, just try to let it be, because you can't change it, but you can change the way you react to it and feel about it. So, but that's really, we'll put up, like I said, we'll have put up some pictures of some of the things that the piece of newspaper, and me as a little bitty kid. There used to be a wall to my right here. We now have the open concept, but it used to be a wall that me and my family was sitting there before mom and dad built. And it's kind of a trip to look back at that picture and all. But anyway, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I hope you guys have many, many blessings this year.
Yep. And just thank you for all our subscribers. Love your comments, love your support. And hopefully this channel will continue to grow, and we'll just keep sharing our little life and hope become part of yours. So until next time, we will see you later.